Imagine being born in a tiny wooden cabin with no electricity, no money, and almost no education, and growing up to become one of the most powerful and respected leaders in world history. This is the incredible story of Abraham Lincoln, the man who led America through civil war, ended slavery, and changed the future of the United States forever. His journey was not easy. He faced poverty, heartbreak, failure, depression, political defeat, and a divided nation tearing itself apart. But through determination, intelligence, and courage, Lincoln became a symbol of freedom and democracy for the entire world. This is not just the story of a president. This is the story of survival, leadership, sacrifice, and legacy. Welcome to the full story of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a small log cabin in Kentucky. His parents, Thomas Lincoln and Nancy Hanks Lincoln, were poor farmers struggling to survive on the American frontier. Life during the early 1800s was extremely difficult. Families worked from sunrise to sunset just to grow enough food to survive the winter. Young Abraham grew up surrounded by forests, mud roads, and hard labor. There were no luxuries, no comfortable schools, no modern technology, and no guarantee of safety. But even as a child, Abraham Lincoln was different. He was curious, quiet, thoughtful, and incredibly hungry for knowledge. Lincoln had less than 1 year of formal education during his entire childhood. But he educated himself. Whenever he could find a book, he would read it over and over again. He borrowed books from neighbors and walked miles just to get them. Some of his favorite books included the Bible, Aesop's Fables, Robinson Crusoe, and biographies of famous leaders. At night, he often read by firelight because candles were expensive. While other children rested after farm work, Lincoln studied. He developed a deep love for language and storytelling. Friends later remembered how he entertained people with jokes, stories, and speeches, even as a young boy. But tragedy soon entered his life. When Abraham Lincoln was only 9 years old, his mother Nancy became seriously ill. She died from a disease known as milk sickness. Lincoln was devastated. The loss deeply affected him for the rest of his life. Later, Lincoln said everything he was or hoped to be came from his mother. After her death, the family struggled emotionally and financially. But a year later, Lincoln's father remarried. His new stepmother, Sarah Bush Johnston, encouraged Abraham's love for learning. She believed he was special, and she supported his dream of becoming educated. That support changed his life forever. As Lincoln grew older, his family moved several times searching for better opportunities. Eventually, they settled in Illinois. Lincoln worked many difficult jobs. He split rails for fences, worked on farms, served as a store clerk, and even worked on flatboats traveling down the Mississippi River. During these travels, Lincoln witnessed slavery firsthand. He saw enslaved people chained and sold at markets in the South. The scenes shocked him deeply. Those experiences would shape his beliefs about freedom and equality later in life. Lincoln became known in his community for his incredible strength. Standing over 6 feet 4 inches tall, he was one of the tallest men around. He was also an excellent wrestler. In one famous match, Lincoln defeated a local champion and gained enormous respect. But his greatest talent wasn't physical strength. It was communication. People loved hearing him speak. He could explain complicated ideas in simple ways. He used humor, intelligence, and honesty to connect with ordinary Americans. Without realizing it, Abraham Lincoln was preparing for politics. In 1832, Lincoln decided to run for the Illinois state legislature. At the time, he was only 23 years old. He had almost no money and little political experience. And he lost the election. But instead of quitting, Lincoln kept learning. He studied law by himself and eventually became a lawyer. Unlike many attorneys of his time, Lincoln earned a reputation for honesty. If he believed a client was guilty, he sometimes refused to take the case. People began calling him Honest Abe. Over time, Lincoln became one of the most respected lawyers in Illinois. And in 1834, he finally won election to the Illinois legislature. While building his political career, Lincoln met Mary Todd, an intelligent and ambitious woman from a wealthy family. The two had a complicated relationship filled with emotional ups and downs. But eventually, they married in 1842. Together, they had 4 sons. Sadly, only one child survived into adulthood. The deaths of his children caused Lincoln enormous emotional pain. Historians believe Lincoln struggled with depression throughout much of his life. But despite personal suffering, he continued moving forward. For many years, Lincoln traveled across Illinois as a circuit lawyer. He rode horseback from town to town, handling legal cases. Sometimes he slept in small inns or crowded rooms with other lawyers. He became famous for his courtroom skills. Lincoln wasn't flashy. He didn't use complicated legal language. Instead, he spoke clearly and logically. Jurors trusted him because he seemed genuine and honest. By the 1850s, Lincoln had become financially successful and politically respected. But America itself was becoming dangerously divided. And the issue tearing the country apart was slavery. By the mid-1800s, the United States was split between free states and slave states. Southern states depended heavily on slavery for agriculture and economic power. Many Northern Americans opposed slavery's expansion into new territories. Tensions grew more intense every year. Violence erupted in places like Kansas. Political arguments became explosive. The nation seemed headed toward disaster. Lincoln believed slavery was morally wrong. But he also knew the country was fragile. He feared America might collapse completely. Still, he refused to stay silent. In 1858, Lincoln ran for the United States Senate against Stephen Douglas. Although Senate seats were chosen differently back then, the campaign became nationally famous because of a series of debates. The Lincoln-Douglas debates attracted huge crowds. Lincoln argued slavery should not expand into new territories. Douglas supported popular sovereignty, meaning states could decide for themselves. Lincoln's speeches impressed Americans across the country. One of his most famous statements was, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." He warned that America could not remain permanently divided between free and slave states. Although Lincoln lost the Senate race, the debates made him a national political star. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln became the Republican Party's candidate for president. Many Southern states feared Lincoln would end slavery completely. During the campaign, Lincoln presented himself as a moderate leader determined to preserve the Union. He won the election with strong support from Northern states. But before Lincoln even took office, Southern states began leaving the United States. South Carolina seceded first. Others quickly followed. These states formed the Confederate States of America. America was falling apart. And Lincoln had not even entered the White House yet. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The American Civil War had begun. Lincoln faced the greatest crisis in U.S. history. The nation was split in two. Families fought against each other. Brother against brother. Friend against friend. Lincoln called for volunteers to defend the Union. Millions of Americans prepared for war. At first, many believed the conflict would end quickly. They were wrong. The Civil War became one of the bloodiest wars in American history. Leading a nation during war was almost impossible. Lincoln faced criticism from every direction. Some people thought he moved too slowly against slavery. Others believed he was destroying constitutional rights. Military generals failed repeatedly. Newspapers attacked him daily. And every casualty report brought more heartbreak. But Lincoln remained calm. He spent countless hours visiting soldiers, meeting families, and reading military updates late into the night. Despite enormous pressure, Lincoln never gave up. He believed preserving the Union was essential for democracy itself. By 1862, Lincoln realized the war could not be won without addressing slavery directly. On January 1, 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation. The document declared enslaved people in Confederate-controlled territory were free. The proclamation transformed the Civil War. Now the conflict was not only about preserving the Union. It was also about ending slavery. The announcement inspired millions around the world. It also allowed Black Americans to join the Union Army. Nearly 200,000 African American soldiers eventually fought for freedom and the Union cause. Lincoln's decision changed American history forever. In July 1863, one of the most important battles of the Civil War took place near Gettysburg. For 3 terrible days, Union and Confederate forces fought in brutal combat. Thousands died. The Union victory at Gettysburg became a turning point in the war. Months later, Lincoln attended a ceremony honoring fallen soldiers. There, he delivered one of the most famous speeches in history, the Gettysburg Address. The speech lasted only a few minutes, but its message became immortal. Government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. The words inspired Americans then, and still inspire people today. Despite being president during war, Lincoln remained deeply compassionate. He visited hospitals filled with wounded soldiers. He comforted grieving families. He often pardoned young soldiers, sentenced to death for desertion. Some political leaders thought Lincoln was too soft. But Lincoln understood human suffering better than most. Years of personal pain had given him empathy. Even during war, he wanted reconciliation instead of revenge. That compassion would shape his vision for America after the conflict ended. By 1864, many Americans were exhausted by war. Thousands had died. Cities were damaged. Families were broken. Some believed Lincoln would lose re-election. But Union military victories improved public confidence. Lincoln campaigned on finishing the war and preserving the nation. He won re-election in November 1864. For Lincoln, the victory meant Americans still believed in democracy, even during crisis. And now, he could focus on ending the war completely. In early 1865, Confederate forces were collapsing. Union General Ulysses S. Grant pushed deeper into Confederate territory. Finally, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia on April 9, 1865. The Civil War was over. After 4 years of bloodshed, the Union survived. Slavery was ending. Americans celebrated across the country. Lincoln hoped to reunite the nation peacefully. He spoke about healing wounds instead of seeking revenge. But tragedy was only days away. On April 14, 1865, Abraham Lincoln attended a play at Ford's Theater. Actor John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate supporter, entered the presidential box. He shot Lincoln in the back of the head. The attack shocked the nation. Doctors fought desperately to save him. But the next morning, Abraham Lincoln died. Millions of Americans mourned. People cried openly in streets, homes, and churches. The man who saved the Union was gone. Lincoln's funeral train traveled across multiple states so Americans could say goodbye. Crowds gathered everywhere. Some people stood silently. Others wept uncontrollably. Black Americans especially mourned Lincoln deeply because many viewed him as the great emancipator. Even political enemies recognized his greatness after death. The country understood it had lost an extraordinary leader. Today, Abraham Lincoln is remembered as one of the greatest presidents in American history. He preserved the United States during its darkest hour. He helped end slavery. And he proved democracy could survive even civil war. His leadership inspired future generations around the world. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. often referenced Lincoln's vision of equality and freedom. The Lincoln Memorial stands today as a symbol of hope, unity, and courage. Millions visit it every year. And Lincoln's words continue to inspire people fighting for justice and freedom everywhere. More than 150 years after his death, Abraham Lincoln remains relevant. Why? Because his story represents perseverance. He failed many times. He faced depression. He experienced heartbreaking loss. Yet he kept moving forward. Lincoln showed the world that leadership is not about perfection. It's about courage during difficult times. It's about doing what is right even when it is unpopular. And it's about believing ordinary people deserve freedom and equality. From a poor child in a log cabin to one of history's most respected leaders. Abraham Lincoln's story proves that greatness can come from anywhere. If you enjoyed this documentary, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful stories from American history.